Hi, this is Barry Pearl. You're listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Robertson with a reminder that Anthony Wynn and Robert Wood will join us in our second hour as we remember the life and career of actor Barry Morse. We hope you'll stay tuned for that. In the meantime, Tony Figueroa and Donna Allen are with us via Zoom as we remember the life and career of Rob Reiner. Rob Reiner was born March 6, 1947 as part of This Week in TV History. You mentioned Castle Rock.
Yes.
And this is something I forgot. Until I read all the tributes that poured in particularly in the week, the week immediately following what happened on December 14th of last year. Larry David either told a reporter, or he may have posted it, or have someone post it on Twitter, because I don't imagine Larry David tweeting, but
no,
he'll have somebody do it for him. He pointed out that, remember, Seinfeld was not an immediate hit.
Yeah.
Seinfeld was nearly canceled twice, as I recall. I mean,
that's right.
They did a pilot. It didn't, but they had enough believers on NBC to get it on the air. And then they filmed like 4 or 6 shows. And the ratings were kind of lukewarm because the audience didn't quite realize that they were doing something different. And according to Larry David, Rob Reiner was one of the people who lobbied NBC to give some rope.
No, that's right. It was a Castle Rock production. You could see the famous, lighthouse logo at the end of each episode. So it was... Yeah, he lobbied for that. Michael McKean gives him a lot of credit also for his career. Because, Rob Reiner directed Michael McKean in Spinal Tap and the sequel that was just recently. I mean, that came out just before. But Michael McKean and David Lander at Carnegie Mellon, and they were also part of an improv group with Harry Shearer, and they were with Christopher Guest. But they were hired as writers. But the Lenny and Squiggy characters were characters that they did. And they were at a party at Rob Reiner and Penny Marshall's place. And Rob was saying, at the time they were Lenny and Anthony. That was the characters. And he said, do Lenny and Anthony. And Garry Marshall saw the shtick that they would do and said, oh, that's what Laverne and Shirley needs. When they were putting Laverne and Shirley together, they were missing something. They needed something that kind of counterbalanced Laverne and Shirley. And I believe it was Penny Marshall said, we need somebody also to give Laverne and Shirley some class. And so, and you had those were groundbreaking characters, but Michael McKean did credit Rob Reiner, to say, get him to do that at a party so Garry Marshall could see that shtick. And I don't think, Laverne and Shirley, by the way, which turned 55 last month. Yeah. I don't think they would have had that career. I mean, they were very talented writers as well. And David Lander, who we lost a few years ago, also did a lot of voiceover work, but they credit Rob Reiner for getting, at least helping create Lenny and Squiggy and getting them a career. There was another show which popped into my head called Good Heavens.
Oh, that Carl did in the spring of '76.
Yeah, he did that and the first episode was Rob Reiner and Penny Marshall, where Carl Reiner played an angel whose character was Mr. Angel, and he would reward people who did good deeds, basically granting a wish. Yeah. And, kind of the moral was, be careful what you wish for. And in the first episode, Rob Reiner said, well, okay, I want to be a professional baseball player. And that story played. And he did several episodes. He did one with Sid Caesar. He did one with Susan Day, shortly after the
he did one
the
with
Partridge Family. That's right. not too many episodes aired.
Yeah,
But,
they only, I think they only made 13. It went 13 and out. I think they aired it in the spring of '76
yeah,
opposite Little House. It was either opposite Little House on the Prairie or I forget what was on CBS at the time, but it was on Monday nights, and
yes.
it finished third, and they quietly premiered, and then it quietly went away.
Mm.
Yeah, and yeah, so it had Donna Michi, Susan Day, Sandy Duncan, Pat Harrington Jr., Florence Henderson, Alex Karras, Penny Marshall, Hugh O'Brien, Loretta Swit, Brenda Vaccaro, Fred Willard. Yeah, Fred Will. Yeah, also in Spinal Tap.
Yes.
Yes, very memorable in Spinal Tap. Um, no, but just thinking of the work and just kind of also not to steal from It's a Wonderful Life, but how one life touches other lives, and I think everybody who has worked with him has somehow been enriched
Yeah.
by having worked with him. And then when Betty Garrett left All in the Family and did Laverne and Shirley, I'm sure that they were still somehow connected. When he split up with Penny Marshall, and they had they were married for a while. They also had an understanding because now you had Rob Reiner, director, and Penny Marshall, director. They had an understanding that they would never release a movie at the same time.
Yeah.
So they could not, so that they would never, step on each other's toes or anything like that. So they were still, cordial.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
Ed Robertson thanking you for listening to the TV Confidential podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button so that you won't miss our next episode.
Hi, this is Marla Gibbs, also known as Florence on the Jeffersons, Mary on 227, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Arch, what David did took a lot of guts.
My own father doesn't understand. Why should he?
When the hell are you going to admit that the war was wrong? I ain't talking about that war. I don't want to talk about that goddamn war no more. I'm talking about something else. And what he done was wrong. Saying he won't go. What do you think the whole people of this country can say whether or not they want to go to war? You couldn't get a decent war off the ground that way. All the young people would say no. Sure they would. Because they don't want to get killed.
CBS this morning did several pieces on him, one of which I think originally aired around the release of When Harry Met Sally, or it may have been around a milestone birthday, and the interviewer began with Harry Met Sally, and he talked about, he being Rob Reiner, talked about, in many respects, the Billy Crystal character was based on himself, because that was sort of the Rob Reiner he was between the end of his marriage to Penny Marshall and the time he met and eventually married Michele. He had grown as a person, and he credited Michele with helping
change the course of the story.
And fully develop him as a human being. So behind every great man is an even greater woman.
So
there's some traffic going on outside of my building, folks. We'll navigate it.
Yeah, we're having similar things in this neighborhood too. No, I'm trying to think of some of the other stuff. An American President is one of my favorite.
Good film.
And I think that paved the way for The West Wing. some of the same people, Aaron Sorkin, Martin Sheen, and
He gave his mother Estelle has one of the most
oh yes,
the most memorable line and the most memorable scene of When Harry Met Sally
in the deli,
in the deli.
and just I'll have what she's having.
That's right.
And it's like, and I've seen and talk about, that's my mom, but also, what was going on in his head, the idea for the deli scene, and then his mom delivering that line. And that deli is still there, and people go to that deli. We had a friend who went to that, who recreated the scene. I don't know.
I'm sure they weren't the first.
Yeah, I am sure that somebody every so often shows up, wants to sit at that table, and wants to recreate that moment. Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan did a commercial recently where they were back at the deli. But yeah, I am sure that somebody, and if you're an employee there, it's like, oh, it happened again. Yeah, they're doing it. So I don't know if they have an HR department that, but I mean,
the only other thing I will add is if you have a chance, folks, visit Tony's YouTube page. He has an abbreviated version of the story he just shared with us tonight. But I want people to watch it because you recorded that like a day or two.
Yeah, a couple of days. Yeah.
So you're very raw. I mean, I've known you. I've known you both for more than 15 years. I don't remember seeing you that emotional about anything. But it's like this is very raw, and you are recounting an unusual experience that happened to take place one day at work with someone who happened to be a film and television icon. And it was my takeaway watching it is it's one of those once in a lifetime experience that will always stay with you. And that was very apparent. So I encourage people to watch, to go.
No, I appreciate that because it was, and I need to, revisit it now. But yeah, I waited to see because the story was developing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's also, I was where I am right now. And I got a news bulletin from the Hollywood Reporter saying something has happened at his house. And it said, 2 bodies were found. And of course they say, I think it was a 78-year-old man and a 68-year-old woman. And so it's like, I think I know where this is going. And then maybe an hour, 90 minutes later, it was announced that happened. So the memories were already coming back. And then, the story did not end there. And then we were finding out more and more and more. And, so I did have that, oh my God moment. And it's, and I'm sure, between the time that we're recording and the time that this airs, there'll probably be other news developments with what was going on there. So, the big picture also was, definitely a gut punch. Something that was, it really did take you up. And then everybody I'm speaking to, about it afterwards, because some people knew I took him around and, was asking a few other questions. But, when I'm reading stuff online from friends that also had, encounters or just loved what he did. And I'll also, not to go negative, I read some criticisms. Some of them are on my YouTube page. And the only thing I could think of was, Well, thank God he was an advocate for free speech.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here's the thing. Yeah, you can say what you want, and you have the freedom to do that. And people like him, his dad, Norman Lear, and other people who sometimes, said, stood up against people who might want to limit what you have to say in these, they were the ones who were fighting for you. So, so just kind of remember that when you're, if you want to tear the guy down. And for those who want to tear the guy down, I could ask you, what have you done with your life? And I don't know if you would want to put something on YouTube about that, but when these things happen, people will jump on it, and it's like, this guy, you like to use the term life well lived. This guy had a life well lived.
Yes, he did.
He wasn't just the Hollywood celebrity. I mean, he dedicated his time to causes that meant things to him. And I mean, that was also part of the Reiner legacy. And, he also gives so much credit to Norman Lear as a second father and a mentor. And he said really that Norman Lear was the person who saw that he could be funny before his dad could see that he could be funny. So he owed so much to Norman Lear. And, I mean, one of these days we could go into things about the family hour and
Sure.
Meathead getting a vasectomy and controversy like that, which there was pushback. And, unfortunately, the talent at the time had the ability to use that forum and push back. Because, if you're at a certain level, you could be a household person, but you might not have the backing to stand up to those in power, but those who could did, and thank God they did.
And when people push back and send comments, saying, I don't like what you did last week, at least they're watching you.
Yes.
Or listening to you, and at least whatever you said or did, it elicited a reaction. And that's half the battle for anyone, especially now when there's so much competition, both digitally and in traditional media. There's all these voices, and it's hard to know who's standing out and who isn't. So when someone responds to you, even if they're being critical, at least they watched it and were moved to respond.
Yeah. I mean, the worst said about me was, said, wow, it takes guts to, pay tribute to such a horrible human being. It's like, but I've also saw several different comments that people put out there. Wow, Archie Bunker was right. He really was a meathead. And it's like, you realize you're talking about fictional characters. You realize that Carol O'Connor was making fun of people like you.
Yeah.
And you are not smart enough to know that you are being mocked. He is making fun of you and you are being mocked. And Rob Reiner actually said, Meathead was flawed. Mike Stivic was flawed. They may have shared certain viewpoints, but he also has brought up in many interviews, Mike Stivic was chauvinistic. He did have some issues with equality of the sexes. Getting an appendectomy, he wanted a male doctor. He was struggling. So the character was flawed. Rob Reiner didn't have that hang up, but Mike Stivic did. But you know what? It made it more entertaining for Mike to have some hang-ups and a few moments of hypocrisy.
And made the character real.
Made the character real.
It made the character real, and it made the conflict that was portrayed week in and week out real. Because these were issues that many families were butting heads over or discussing every day, every week.
And, many episodes took place on a Sunday. So everybody was home.
Yeah.
And it was usually Sunday after church. So Edith was home from church because Archie never went to church. Or, the Sammy Davis episode, they established that Archie was making extra money driving a cab. So he'd be back home from driving a cab. And they would have the family discussions. Or, you would have episodes that would take place, sometime after 5 p.m. And so, Archie would sit in his chair, have a beer, watch Walter Cronkite, and give Walter Cronkite the raspberry. But a lot of episodes were also on a Sunday, and they were having literally those kitchen table discussions that many families had, and still do, or in my opinion, should be having. I know families. Oh, we don't talk about that at the table. We don't. Yeah, these are the conversations that you should be having, because not talking about it is not helping whatever the situation is. But, I grew up in a family dinner time. We talked current events. Like we weren't like the Bunkers and the Stivicks, but we did talk current events.
Tony Figueroa and Donna Allen are with us as we remember the life and career of Rob Reiner. We'll take a quick time out. We'll talk some more with Tony and Donna when we come back here on TV Confidential.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go. And pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-222-0511. 800-222-0511. Again, that's 800-222-0511.